You may remember the tweet. It's a meme at this point, but there was that tweet of a Trump hotel. I believe it looked like it was the Vegas location, pasted perhaps a little crudely onto like just part of the ice rock in Greenland. And it said, I promise not to do this to you, Greenland. Fast forward, it's now January big 2-6. Trump is back in the White House. The Greenland proposal is right there with him. It's no longer just a meme. White House briefings are confirming this. We have active negotiations. Military advisors are citing Arctic tensions. Intelligence reports are detailing, Chinese mining bids on the island. Trump is floating force as an option if talks fail, tying it to, this broader plan of like annexing Canada. And the world watches in shock. And watch they do. Maybe they laugh along still, but this time the laughter seems to be a little bit more nervous. Again, all they can do is watch. Trump is the emperor. The United States is one of the only true countries in the world left, and everyone else just kind of has to deal with it, right? They must deal with our art, right? And we talked about this too when we were making predictions about the second Trump administration. It is good to finally have a president who is thinking in terms of centuries, as indicated by his interest in the Panama Canal, as indicated by his interest in the Arctic, etc. So with Greenland, maybe it's not actually madness. It's eccentric, but maybe it's not madness. Maybe it's just barren Trump-informed map game strats to counter China's Arctic ambitions and expose much of Europe's anti-patriot alignment. Could this be the case? Could be. Now, Greenland is not just ice. They do have some other stuff going on there. It's essentially a gateway to rare earth minerals that power everything from, your iPhones, fighter jets. Like, these are minerals which China currently more or less monopolizes. And given that European leaders are further cozying up to Democrats, obviously, censoring American voices online, they're seemingly unreliable in any kind of showdown with Beijing. Like, Trump is just kind of like reading the writing on the wall. On the thawing wall of ice, right? Trump is reading that writing before it's too late. So it's not just like, haha, new territory acquired. Let's do it just to prove to the world that we can, right? Like, acquiring Greenland is a matter of national security for America. It's a way of freeing ourselves from the hostility of Europe's left-wing elites. It's a way of disarming Chinese aggression against the U.S. It's also a nice step away from this sort of outdated Cold War security structure, NATO, right? That serves no one but defense contractors, which, like, fine, like, get your bag. I'm not one of these, like, anti-Boeing guys, right? I'm not one of these what's the other one that everyone likes to talk about? Lockheed Martin. Yeah, I'm not that guy. I'm not going to pretend that those guys aren't cool. I'm just saying we want some of the bag too, right? All for one, one for all. Treasure Island. We will discuss this. So, yeah, in 2019, Trump first publicly comes out with the idea. LOL, what if the U.S. bought Greenland from Denmark? That would be hilarious. He tweets about it. Again, it's hilarious. He calls it a massive real estate deal. It's got immense strategic value. And the rationale is pretty straightforward. Like, yeah, we want economic dominance throughout, untapped rare earth minerals. We want to increase the national security, which is increasingly being contested in the Arctic region. Like, these things are good. This makes sense. Greenland, however, is an autonomous Danish territory. It's larger than Mexico. It's got like 56,000 people living there. Not a whole lot going on, no disrespect, but it is sitting atop vast resources, zinc, gold, uranium. Plus, I've been told that melting ice is opening up the Northwest Passage, and Trump understands that owning that is going to counter growing influence from China and also expand U.S. military presence near Russia. Again, these things are good. Strength and dominance are good. You're supposed to be right-wing. Trust falls and holding hands are gay. We have spent the past several decades essentially doing the latter, but only now does the world want to laugh. Danish Prime Minister calls the proposal absurd. European leaders are dismissing it again as just another in a long list of Trump eccentricities. So everyone is once again picking on our president, Donald Trump, for literally no conceivable reason. And you may remember he canceled a planned visit to Denmark in retaliation. But then, the idea just kind of fizzled out because he's got impeachment, he's got COVID, George Floyd, 2020 election, all this stuff by design, whatever. Maybe they feared the acquisition of Greenland, but that was then. This is now. The big 2-6. Trump's return to the Oval Office after literally a historic re-election, the coolest thing to ever happen, possibly ever. And he's still on about Greenland, which is hilarious. So reports are suggesting that the U.S. is offering debt relief, military aid, infrastructure investments worth billions of dollars. And yeah, he's not ruling out compulsion. He's hinting at invoking national security clauses, eminent domain style acquisition things, if talks don't go the way that he wants them to go. That's just how he negotiates, okay? This is the art of the deal. You must do the reading. It is unwise. Rule number 1 of negotiation, always leave the annihilate literally everything that exists button on the table as an option. And again, this just fits Trump's broader expansionist vision of the Great American Century. You know, he floats annexing Canada as the 51st state to create this like North American superbloc, secure resources and borders against global threats. This is just how he does business, right? But Greenland is the linchpin. This is control of the Arctic. This is dominating rare earth minerals. This is pivoting fully towards China, confronting what is going to define the Great American Century, which is the threat of China. And of course, this timing aligns with the escalating U.S.-China tensions, including trade wars, arresting spies, and, you know, Europe can watch. They can watch from the chair, maybe even the nook. We love Europe, but Trump's message is pretty clear. It's America first, no more free rides, and this is good for Europe too. By the way, the European right in most cases does benefit from the Trump administration keeping the left at bay, from outright banning them, right? But in terms of checking the U.S., stopping us from pursuing our interests, again, affectionately, no more brother wars, Europe is a big HOA, and we're not in it. So, yeah, we'll take the frozen rock. We'll take the crown jewel of the Arctic. We'll take the emerging shipping routes across the Arctic Ocean. We'll take the lower transit times between Asia and Europe, lower by literally magnitudes compared to the Panama Canal. LOL, get owned. And if you control Greenland, you control the gateway to this emerging superhighway, right? And if you don't, very importantly, someone else will. Someone else is going to fill that vacuum. And that someone else is going to be Russia. It's going to be China. And then they will control the future of global trade and military projection. Europe is not going to stop that from happening. I'm sorry. It's just not. Russia has been militarizing for years in the Arctic. Their northern fleet deploys like literal nuclear submarines under the ice, which are capable of launching hypersonic missiles that could reach East Coast U.S. cities in a matter of minutes. Like, they've reopened dozens of Soviet-era bases. They've installed radar systems, air defense, all this stuff throughout that region. In 2025 alone, they were conducting military exercises in the Arctic, including simulated invasions of NATO territories. Like, it would not be good for us were that to continue. It would actually be better for us for that to not be happening. We don't want to be blind to Russian submarine movements. China, however, again, this is definitely like the century-defining threat. This is our long-term antagonist. You know, Beijing is calling itself a near-Arctic state, despite being thousands of miles away. And their whole Polar Silk Road initiative aims to essentially embed economic influence through these infrastructure deals. Like, they're already the second largest shareholder in one of the world's largest rare earth deposits in Greenland. And that's powering everything, right? That's your F-35s. That's your EV batteries. China is controlling that. China is controlling an overwhelming percentage of global supply. And a Chinese foothold in Greenland would let them strangle U.S. tech, strangle U.S. defense, all of that at will. Again, it would be better if that is not the case. We do not want that to be happening. We've already got some military stuff going on in Greenland. We've got Space Force. We've got early warning radar detectors with Space Force in Greenland, but because of Danish sovereignty or whatever, I'll be respectful. Because of that, our ability to expand is limited, whereas full U.S. control would allow for massive upgrades. It would allow for new runways for B-21s, submarine ports, hypersonic test sites. We want to block Chinese access to the Atlantic. We want to force their navy through choke points, which we control. That is good. And unfortunately, our European allies, like Denmark, cannot be trusted to reliably hold the line. Their leftist governments would sooner prioritize green energy deals with China over hard security. Okay, fine. We will secure our Arctic flank independently, and Trump sees this quite clearly, you know, for the sake of the economy, for the sake of the military, the sake of the economy and the military of the Great American Century, which is to say the success of the Great American Century, the existence of the Great American Century. For it to even come about, we need the ice rock.